Trust me, you do not want a sequel to Catcher in the Rye. Hello, Catholic Controversy here, and back in English class, I remember my teacher saying something about like how people wondered why JD Salinger never wrote a sequel to Catcher in the Rye, even though so many people wanted a sequel to Catcher in the Rye, because people demanded to know like what happens next with Holden. And you know, I kind of wondered why people would want a sequel in the first place because I figured that the first one was enough torture already. You don't need to torture yourself with the second one. But now that I've actually taught myself creativity and writing and criticism, I can say that if you love Catcher in the Rye, the last thing that you want is a sequel. I want a sequel to Catcher in the Rye, but that's because I hate the book with a burning passion. And a sequel to Catcher in the Rye would absolutely destroy Catcher in the Rye. There's no way around it. A sequel to Catcher in the Rye would absolutely destroy the legacy and goodwill of Catcher in the Rye. And there's no way around it. There's absolutely no way to make a sequel to Catcher in the Rye and have it still come out as still this shining beacon of teenage angst and understanding the youth of the world through cross generations. No, it would absolutely destroy Catcher in the Rye. Here's how I know this. Let's first talk about why sequels are made in the beginning. The entire concept behind making a sequel story, making a continuation of the story, is because the story is incomplete. That's the only reason that you would do a sequel to a story. Theoretically speaking, if you want to be an actual creative person and not just like a corporate money grubbing executive that needs to have a sequel and keep the money train rolling. No, the reason you would make a sequel is because while you told the main problem and resolved the conflict of the original, there's still more to the story that you'd want to tell. That's why we have Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi and Harry Potter's books 2 through 7 and I don't know, Lord of the Rings. Those are pretty good, I think. I mean, I've never read them, but they are beloved books by many people. And yeah, that's because while the original conflict of the first one of Star Wars, Sorcerer's Stone, Fellowship of the Rings, all those, while they were all had a conflict that got resolved, the overall story wasn't complete. You still had to get the ring to Mount whatever. I don't really know Lord of the Rings, but you still had to throw the ring in there. You still had to have the Return of the King. You still had in Star Wars. You had to defeat the Empire, defeat the Sith, and bring Darth Vader back to the light side as Anakin Skywalker. And Harry Potter. Harry had to kill Voldemort once and for all that stuff. I mean, you still had like the initial conflicts that got resolved in the first ones, but it wasn't over. Likewise, you got people with integrity like Stephen King who say, no, my books are completely finished when I finish them. That is the end of those character arcs. I'm not writing a sequel. At least I think Stephen King said that. I don't really know, but you get some directors and writers that say, no, I am never making a sequel because there's nothing else to tell with these characters. And why you get other sequels that are just people don't want and people hate them, like Ghostbusters 2. It was just Ghostbusters Light. Why people don't like Home Alone 3. It was the sequel that nobody wanted. It doesn't even have Macaulay Culkin. It's just sort of retreading some same steps, but having completely different conflicts that just are not entertaining and don't progress anything. I don't know. You got other sequels. I'm sure you can look at any of the Disney cheat quels like Atlantis 2 and Belle's Magical World and The Fox and the Hound 2 and all of those bad direct to Disney sequels that nobody wants because the stories were complete. The stories were great. You didn't need to add anything to them. And that's the thing with Catcher in the Rye. Even more so because Catcher in the Rye is a coming of age story. I use sarcasm quotes because I argue that by the end, Holden Caufield never actually learns anything because if he did, he would have said, yeah, I was an idiot back then, and here's how I progressed, and shown some signs of remorse when retelling his stories, but all he ever did was just complain. So it's like, I don't think he ever actually learns anything. But at the same time, if you do say that he learned something at the end and say that he had his arc and stuff, what would you do? What would a Catcher in the Rye sequel look like? Honestly, what do you want in a Catcher in the Rye sequel? Because let's do things. If let's say at the end of Catcher in the Rye, Holden Caulfield does learn something and goes from being an immature child to a mature adult by the end. And he has this coming of age growth. What are you going to do? The reason that you guys like Catcher in the Rye is because of that whole coming of age arc. You like to see how he is going through life and understanding how things are. At least that's what I've been told people like about this. I have no idea because I hate this book, but that's the argument that my teacher was saying. Like when I was asking, why is this a good book? Why are we reading this? And she's like, well, because you understand his arc and plight because you are a teenager yourself. You're not that much, you're about the same age as Holden, so you understand how his progressions are going. And it's just like, what are you going to do if he goes back? Are you going to have him go through the same things over again? Are you going to have it where he just dicks around in New York for another weekend after getting kicked out of another school or something to that regards, or running around New York after he gets fired for being the same exact idiot that he was? That's just going to show you that he learned absolutely nothing in the original book, and it's going to undo everything that he did before, and it's just going to make the book horrible. You're just going to say, well, what's the point of reading Catcher in the Rye if he doesn't learn anything in Catcher in the Rye 2? Uh, that's the same problem. What's going to happen? Are you going to do something different where now he's going on a love story? You're not going to like that because that's not what Catcher in the Rye is. That's not what you fell in love with. Because you're not going to want to see Holden Caulfield as a Twilight vampire or whatever for a romance movie. No, you're not going to want that because that's not what you like about Catcher in the Rye. You're not going to want it to be a tragedy where at the end he dies, because now it's going to be that they kill off your actual character that you love so much, and they're going to just have to really hammer in that he is an absolutely horrible person that doesn't learn anything, because that's what makes tragedies work, is that by the end of the tragedy, you're satisfied that the character dies. So what's going to happen if you do it that way? Then that's just going to make you say, wait a minute, I'm going to look back at Catcher in the Rye, and Holden Caulfield hasn't changed much. So yeah, I guess killing him off was the right decision. A hero's journey, go on an adventure to, like, I don't know, stop the museum from closing down or something. That's not going to work. That's not what you want in Catcher in the Rye, is it? No. And then, like, the only thing that I could even see is, like, you can't even make a prequel, because if you made a prequel, that would just basically be him negating everything that happened in the first chapter of the book, where he's just saying, I'm not going to bore you with all that David Copperfield crap. And yeah, my life was kind of crazy leading up to this, but I'm just going to sprinkle that in throughout, where it's like, you're going to see, okay, this is what caused Holden Caulfield to be so screwed up. And it's like, it's going to ruin Catcher in the Rye for you. And what, you're going to do a parallel book where you're like seeing how the world sees Holden Caulfield through all the interactions with people that he's had? You're going to see it from Ackley's perspective and Jane's perspective and Sally's perspective and Phoebe's perspective and his parents' perspective, and all the people just saying, I don't know why I hang out with this Holden Caulfield person. He's a horrible person. What would you want out of Catcher in the Rye 2? Honestly, what would you want out of Catcher in the Rye 2? And how would you do it so that it wouldn't destroy Catcher in the Rye for you? Because the way I see it, there's nothing there that you could possibly do to make Catcher in the Rye 2 actually be good. And not only be good, but not destroy Catcher in the Rye in the process. A sequel would only just show you that the Emperor has no clothes. This has been Catholic Controversy signing off, and may God bless you.